Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all doing well. My name is Tanner Dagenais, and I'm the host of Self-Sabotage Solutions. On this podcast, it's my opportunity and my pleasure to be able to share everything I know about self-sabotage, but also to be able to share other people's self-sabotage stories. Because it's so important that we know that no matter who we are, where we come from, or what we have experienced in life, that we're all able to overcome self-sabotage. I'm very grateful and thankful today to have author and Freedom from Self-Sabotage Coach at Maverick Ministries, Robin Reed. Robin, I've seen what you've been doing through your Facebook. I've heard part of your story through like your website and things like that, and I'm really excited to be able to hear more about it and to dive deep into your time helping people through their faith and things like that. So can you please just like introduce yourself a little bit, and you can kind of maybe start wherever you feel like is a good starting place.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me on, and love that you're hosting this as really creating a chamber, right, for us to share stories and understand. I think that what I run into so much is this ultimate lie that exists with every human being, and that is we are uniquely special and we're the only ones with the problem or this thing that's in our head or our challenge, and then the push into solitude, into that we are alone. And I certainly did that. My story of self-sabotage is sadly not unique. Just the typical American male pumping along. It's really quite a cliche. Get the girl, live in the nice house, drive the cool car. I just, all the metrics of success outside of who I was, because I didn't know who I was. And so that's a little bit longer of a story, and one I'll happily share. But now I'm in this spot of really just being blessed to take stock, really take inventory of all the places I've been and those wounds and those things that at the time it's like, I remember being on my knees, just being like, God, why am I dealing with this? Like why is this happening? And feeling ultimately like a victim in it. And maybe on some level, well, there's no victims over 18, but certainly as a child, going through the abuse and the trauma and just some of the jarring experiences, to now being an adult sovereign male and being able to build these pillars of strength and be able to serve back has made the journey worth it. 100%.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you were able to, well, it's cool that you were like, so you were successful, but you had that realization that things kind of weren't really what they were supposed to be. What do you think was like that point where you had that turning point where you're like realized, even though I have like a house, I have a wife, I have money, where did you have that turning point where you're like, I still need to make
Mm-hmm.
some changes, I still have some work to do?
Mm-hmm. C.S. Lewis is an amazing author, and he's got a quote that always resonated with me. He said, pain is God's megaphone to a very deaf world. So the one word answer is pain. Pain. It is a catalyst for change. And in sales, we even talk about the pleasure pain principle. People are gravitating towards pleasure and moving away from pain in every situation. And that was my catalyst. It was just a constant self-sabotaging. I call it the yo-yo, right? Just the roller coaster, the self-sabotage roller coaster, up 1 minute, down the next. And I was in sales. I was great at it. And I coached salespeople, like high producing, high performing salespeople. And I saw them on it. Like I have made trips to bad places to pull a top producing salesperson off of a bender many times. I have walked people into rehab, functional, handsome, attractive, high performing people, just brutal. And I'm blessed in that, I think there's really I think this is key. Self-sabotage really comes up in two major categories, or in two ways. There's a lot of ways, endless ways we can self-sabotage, but it shows itself in two ways: internal or external, right? You deal with somebody who's depressed. That is rage turned inwards. And I was depressed for decades, just with the anger and the turmoil of my trauma inside of me. Other people, it turns outwards, right? So you've got alcohol abuse, for example. One individual is under a bridge, has got 3 DUIs, yeah, ooh, I don't want to deal with that.
Mhm.
But another individual has alcohol abuse, and they're the functioning alcoholic. We can tolerate that, right? And so that's just one angle. And so in all these different ways that we can self-sabotage, I see it happening ultimately in two ways: against others. They're pushing it out and projecting it on others, or they're internalizing it and they're just beating themselves up. And I was that one. I just, nothing was ever freaking good enough. And that I guess kind of relentless ambition, fueled me, right? And so, nothing's either all good or all bad, right? Like, I went through these things, and that internalization of trauma and pain led to self-sabotage that ultimately didn't hurt other people. Don't get me wrong, I had to make my amends. um, but it was mainly pain against myself is how it showed up.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good insight. I feel like, the between internal, external self-sabotage. So, what do you feel like what's causing your internal self-sabotage? I think you mentioned some trauma when you were a child. Is that what you bring it back to?
Yeah, and let me drill down into that, because who doesn't have trauma?
Yeah.
Right? So in this world,
Hmm.
um, we're all products of dysfunction, and things that our parents went through. Um, so I guess, kind of going back, I was raised in a highly religious home. Was raised into the really a cult of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and was born into it, raised into it. And so little Robin was isolated. He was over here alone, not alone, but kept aside. And he was loved. He was taken care of. There was some trauma in that, some abuse and things, but in itself, being apart from the world, children are resilient, right? They don't know any different, right? God is their dad. Dad represents all men. Other people and relationships and love is their mom, and all women are their mom, because that's all they know. And so, I was Tom Sawyer growing up in the hill country of Austin, back when it was hippies and Harleys, before it was kind of the little LA that it is now. And it was an amazing childhood in a lot of ways. But every part of my upbringing was indoctrinated and scheduled and set up. I mean, I was going door to door, in ministry at before I could walk. And so, I was raised into that. And by the time I was 15, I was pulled out of school, never went to 8th grade, never went back, never went to high school, never went to college. Done. Got a hardship driver's license, and was immediately into full-time ministry, leading a team of 33 people into the mission field at 15 years old. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I mean, somebody would look at that and go, "Oh, that sounds awful." Well, I mean, I was just trying to please my parents, right? And uh, they had high hopes for me, in the religion. And anyway, skipping ahead, I saw the truth for kind of what that was, and had an experience in the religion that uh, was really horrific. An elder's wife was coming on to me and saying that she was she was pregnant with my child, and
Oh, wow.
meanwhile I'm 17 and I'm a virgin, and terrified of women, and never even seen a woman naked, much less having sex with her. My mother drove the fear of God into me about having sex with anybody outside, my wife, one day, forever. And so that got me banished. And so immediately my life went from this I didn't know anybody outside of my family and the church, and this life that I thought was all great and fun, to not knowing anybody. And so I moved out and started hustling, just started hustling with no education. I mean, didn't know how to shave. My boss taught me how to shave. And so, I can laugh on that now,
Mhm.
and I can, and I think this is the key. I can extract the greatness out of that.
Yeah.
It taught me how to be a speaker. It taught me how to be engaging. It taught me how to dress and show up and connect with people, right? It got me an amazing sales career, right? Because I just was fearless. I mean, at 5 years old, I'm knocking on the door. Hi, Joe Willis is here. Would you like to buy the Watchtower and Awake magazine? I mean, what 5-year-old does that? Nowadays, you can't pull a 25-year-old off their phone, much less knock on a door. So I'm fearless. I am fearless when it comes to the thing that but I'm fearless because of the thing that I feared the most, which was rejection, abandonment. And so what happened? I don't know if God gave me this, or the universe in its infinite wisdom said, here you go, here's more rejection. I'm going to give you everybody that will reject you and abandon you until you will never reject and abandon yourself.
Wow, that's deep and powerful. And I feel like it's so true. I feel like the universe does work in our favor. Um,
Yeah.
and it's pretty amazing, like how you can look back and see this, like how that moment that you probably at the time thought was like the worst thing that had ever happened to you, like was probably what you needed to become the
Yeah.
man you are today, right?
Soul's evolution, right? It was the scourge of my existence. Scourge. And the programming was so freaking deep. I mean, it just, I didn't celebrate my first birthday till I was 30. And so, is that so tragic? No. I mean, I'm an adult. I don't need to celebrate my birthday. Birthdays and holidays are for children. Um, um, but what's important about the story, right? Like, what is it that, okay, I needed to learn how to connect. I needed to learn how to celebrate myself. My last birthday I celebrated in December. I took myself out for a nice sushi dinner, and I read, and I just said hello to people. And I was like, every man I see is my brother. Every woman I see is my sister. And I took myself to a show, and it was great. It was great. And I did that completely alone, and didn't let anybody know. And so it's anybody that's dealing with trauma and self-sabotage, the behaviors are a guidepost. They're a sign for what's happening inside of us. And listen, just listen. I just right before this call, I got off the phone with a woman who's struggling. She feels the 6-year-old little girl who's in pain, and she doesn't trust anybody. I'm like, well, it's not you that doesn't trust anybody. You're 46. You're an adult. It's that 6-year-old little girl. And so I'm coaching, guiding, loving, really, her through this journey of becoming her own loving parent, and then reparenting that little 6-year-old girl. And that's ultimately what I did. And it's for anybody who's listening to this going, holy shit, what do I do? I keep doing this and this and this and this, and I can't stop. And that's where the depression comes from, right? Very few people are clinically depressed with chemical imbalances, and even then, can we look at their diet? That's another podcast. But depression is rage turned inwards, and I can tell you all about it. And popping a pill won't help. Get down on your knees, pray, and listen to that little child. And what I found in that process, in peeling the onion, it wasn't just a one and done thing. It was There's a lot of different modalities. Also another podcast, right? We'll put that in the show notes, start here, 20 years later in there, but just love it all. Love it all with the warts and the mess and the junk and the crap. Live into all of it. I mean, I got tingles right now. My heart is so open in that expression of like, we're just flawed, deeply flawed, perfect, beautiful beings that need love. But it has to happen here. It has to happen here. And so, my advice, I don't like that word either. My infinite advice, but my story share is become your own loving parent. You see the love yourself meme, and those are great. We'll like those on Instagram and whatever. But what does it mean? It mean, if you had there's a story, there's a saying, show me the 7-year-old and I'll show you the man. Meaning 0 to 7, that's our defining years that define who we are. And so here we are as adults, 25, Tanner, 20s, 30s, 40s, me, I'm in my 50s, doesn't matter. We're all trying to live from this adult perspective and correct it on an adult level. But there's that inner child below that's on rocky foundation that's never been dealt with. And so, my self-care practices are like religion now. And I just, they're just part of who I am. They're part of what I do. And that keeps me grounded. Anyway, I'm going long, but who knows? I could rant so wonderfully.
No, I love it. Yeah, it was really interesting, and I completely agree. We do need to address that little child within us. So, how do people go about doing that? Just by going through prayer, by like listening to their inner thoughts. Is that kind of what you? Is it like a lot about being conscious of like the thoughts that are coming out of your head and like the feelings that you're having? Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, great question. That kind of that your question grounds this, right? We can stay in story, in circumstances, but at the end of the day, how haunts us. But how? And it's not complicated. It can be complex. And in the trauma, in the pain, it can feel impossible. And the only way to see it is to feel the impossible. And then baby steps, little things. So let's make that real. Let's give some real things. Yes, prayer. Absolutely prayer, especially with another person. Where 2 or more gathered together right now, right? The word says, where 2 or more gathered together, God says, there I am. I believe that. 1 plus 1 does not equal 2. It equals like 100 into infinity. It's just amazing. Why can I not budge a refrigerator an inch? But you and I, properly leveraged, we can hoist that thing up a foot and carry it downstairs, no problem, right? Leverage. Prayer, especially with another person. Humility. Get on your knee. Deeper in humility. People think of humility as this place of I think it's from those old images of Jesus, pale and, looking up. I hate that. I just hate religion. And it's so much garbage. Jesus was a warrior vagabond and just, a world traveler, and was sexy and was cool and understood people, and he made people feel seen and heard. So it's not humility, because humility is strength. It's reverence. Physically get on your knee, bend a knee, and put your hand on your heart and your breath. It's amazing what happens when we can just breathe. Get into nature, feel nature. It's a reason they call it Mother Nature, right? The mother that provides for us is right there in nature. And then some other modalities. 12 steps is incredible. Incredible. And there's an endless number of them. People think 12 steps and they immediately think AA. Oh, I'm not an alcoholic.
That's what came to my mind.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like
Mhm.
that's what it created. But there is Addicted Anonymous. There's I mean everything, drugs, obsession, codependency. An amazing one, if you're dealing with self-sabotage and the reparenting process, is what's called ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And I think it's adultchildren.org is the name of it. Phenomenal PhD level healing program and entirely free. And here's why it's so cool. It's the one place that you can go in and you can cry, you can smile, you can have your breakdown. Most importantly, you can share your voice uninterrupted. And the only reply anybody's going to give you is, thank you, Tanner. Keep showing up. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's it. And I'm telling you, a lot about self-sabotage is just being seen, being heard, being felt, being witnessed, right? This is the human emotions, man. It's the five. I'd have to look this up. I always forget it. The five A's of love, and this isn't mine. I can tell you who it's by. I have a book somewhere. The five A's of love, and it's like affirmation, acknowledgement, allowing, acceptance. Oh, I'm doing good. That's four. And there's one other. There's one other. We'll put those in the show notes too. But right, like when you think about that, that's as human beings, we all just need the acknowledging, right? And so you asked how. Feel your feelings. Feel your feelings first and foremost. Addiction is the temporary relief from your feelings, right? Feel your feelings and then ask for help. Be reverent, get into a program, hire a coach. I'd be amazed how many times I talk to people and I just want to help them. I just want to hear you. And some of the first things happened twice today. Two people, they're just sitting there talking to me online. I'm like, man, why don't we just have a little 30-minute conversation? First things out of the worst, I can't afford you.
Wow.
First words out of the worst, I can't afford you. I was like, who said anything about money? Money's energy, right? I get my energy from inside and from God. I don't get it from you, right? So we'll eventually get into a conversation. I know how to handle that, right? Because money can come from a lot of different places. But how beautiful. That's a question of resources. Somebody's in that place. Let's make this real, right? Somebody's in trauma, they're in self-sabotage, and they're just like, how do I get out of this? Okay. Just the fact that you've got the mindfulness of knowing that I'm talking to a listener now, right? Just the fact that you're at this place, you've been listening to this, you're even here, change is happening. Physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you're not a sack of bones and blood, right? You are an infinite, multi-layered being. And so just the fact you're here, change is happening. Now you've just learned about, okay, Brother Robinson, put my hand on my heart, breathe. Yeah, I have been feeling fear. Breathe. Okay, breathe. All right, nothing bad's happened. I'm still here. Great. Nobody's hit me. Nobody's smacked me. Dad, All right, inner child. All right, I feel that. Okay, ACA. I can go into one of these meetings. It's free. I love it. I'm kind of struggling with money right now. Right? I can go be heard. How is a highway, but in the moment of it, man, it feels like a perilous, rickety drawstring bridge with man-eating crocodiles underneath it, and it's not.
That's really powerful. I really love your explanation of like the how and just the conscious breathing and kind of getting in touch with yourself. That's really powerful. And I know you mentioned like feeling your pain. And I know for me personally, like I was avoiding my pain at all costs. And I know like a lot of humans do that just in general because we're kind of wired, I think, to avoid pain. Like, right, you put your hot, you put your hand on a hot stove and you pull your hand off right away because it's hot, right? Um, and I was personally smoking a lot of marijuana, pretty much every day to avoid my pain. And I had to get away from that so I can actually feel it. Um, did you have any experiences like that? And if you did, what was your way of kind of getting away from, like, even if you weren't using drugs or marijuana, were you distracting yourself from that pain that you were feeling? Maybe it was through like your sales or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I think your key word there was distraction. You
Mm-hmm.
know, your your share just there. It's not about marijuana,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That was just your drug,
Right.
right? So yeah, I'll share that. I mean, I was a the trifecta. You know, my trifecta of drugs was caffeine to get me going,
Oh, yeah.
sugar to keep me going, and then alcohol to bring me down. And so, you know, I lived you know, as a functional addict, right? Living in society, certainly, you know, groomed well and dressed well. And so, you know, this was all my masks, to fit in and be accepted and get the deal, right? Get the girl. And it worked. You know, listen, all this stuff, marijuana, none of these things are bad. All these things work until they don't work anymore, right? Until they be so. Again, the key word is distraction, right? And when I finally was able to limit those things, and what I would say for anybody who's dealing with substance is, just wean off. You know, smoke one joint a day. You know, smoke two joints a day, one joint a day. Take a hit. You know, take a hit before bed. You know, um, just lower it, you know, is what I did. I went to decaf coffee, and then I went to uh, fruit and things that were sweetened a little more naturally, and real. If I wanted a treat, I got a real homemade cookie, right, with ingredients that, sure, they spiked my blood sugar, but they were real, right? Alcohol. I went to non-alcoholic beer for a while. Careful, that will make you fat. But it's basically bread in a can. But you know, all these things help to just kind of wean that off to where it's like, okay, this doesn't have a grip on me anymore. And so if I wanted to enjoy the purity of the marijuana plant that was prepared properly, and I could use it more as a medicine,
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. You know, it's like in our healing journeys, here's my point. It's so easy to just start taking hard lines, right? It's why I talked about, before you do anything, become your own loving parent to
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Because if you're not, you're just going to be your own abusive parent that you learned when you were a kid. You know, God love our parents. 12 steps says your mom and dad are the source in which you arrived here. Your true parent, your true father, is your higher power. And we say higher power in 12 steps because so many people have so much trauma around God. And I get it. You know, a lot of millions of people have died in the name of God. So I
Yeah.
totally get it. But you just came through mom and dad, right? You're part of source. You're part of the human family,
Mm-hmm.
all that has ever been and all that ever was. And so, maybe I'm getting a little off track here, but distraction. The
Mm-hmm.
distraction was a key word, and bringing it back to that. There's any number of things we can do to distract ourselves. So I mean, I have to monitor it constantly, right? We do business on social media. Wow, there's a distraction, right? Our phones. I'm sitting here in front of three devices. You know, several of them are turned over and turned off, and I'm just like, wow, you know. Um, but I'm not. These are just portals. These are just tools. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm out there every day, sun on my face and on my body, on the solar panel that I have. What is my food? What is my programming? It's going in my head. Yes, last night, God bless myself. I went into I went into a pit. I went into a pit. I was curious. I had a friend's log in to an HBO, And I pull up HBO and I'm like, wow, this is just pure crap. But there was one thing I saw. I was like, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch that for like 30 minutes. I'm not going to watch the whole movie because I know that's crap. I'm just going to have a little bit of crap. So I
Mhm.
turned this on and I was just like, holy shit. I was just, I just saw this from a completely different framework. And sure enough, middle of the night, you know, I'm I'm pulling shit off of me. I'm pulling entities off me and darkness, and I've got this feeling of fear in the back of my head. I'm like, man, what's going on? And I'm like, oh my God, the television, right? That has programming with channels, right?
Mhm.
Like that's word magic, right? Like
Mhm.
there's a reason it's called that. Last night I went into a pit consciously and dialed up some programming, and sure enough I was programmed in that 20-30 minutes, and I was on the channel, and the channel was fear. And so the power of that is back to your original question. What do we do? How? If the distractions are there, the distraction is just that, it's a distraction, right? And there's a lot of modalities we can use to deal with the distractions. The distractions are sometimes spirits, entities, disembodied energies that are just, we have to remember, as humans, we are batteries. We are life force, God connected batteries, and powerful batteries. And there's forces out there that we don't understand. And I don't know if we're necessarily meant to understand, or maybe humanity's not evolved enough to have that consciousness. Doesn't matter. We're not there yet, but we do know it exists. And those entities need a battery or they will die. And they come to us, and our rulers, our misleaders, as we call them, they know this. They know this. That's why the television exists. That's why fast food and McDonald's and Starbucks and caffeine and even the purity of something beautiful like marijuana. Marijuana's not bad. Just like a naked woman's not bad, but it becomes porn,
Mhm.
right? Marijuana's not bad. It's a beautiful plant used for medicine. I'm a huge proponent of plant medicine, also another podcast because that's being disrespected right now. But
Mhm.
amazing modalities to heal and recover ourselves. And what do? We worship the modality, right? That's what your story is. Smoking, avoiding. You're just worshiping marijuana, just like I worshipped caffeine. I used to say to myself, "Oh, I just love a good cup of coffee," and I would describe it like this, and like I'm snuggling up to a baby bunny or something. I don't know. Sugar made me feel like I was connected to my dad. It made me feel like a good little boy. It was my reward. So it made me feel good. Even now, I can go into a fudge store. You ever had fudge? It is
Yep.
sickeningly sweet.
Yep.
If I go into a fudge store, because my dad used to make it, and my dad's no longer with me right now. I know he's not on the planet anymore, but I can immediately feel love for my father. Isn't that cool? I'll sometimes go into a fudge store and just look around. Oh, look at that. I love you, Dad. Alcohol, it wine. Oh, it's romantic. I dress up, wear a nice suit, sit across at a nice little bar top of a wine bar, the beautiful woman, just talk, right? It's romantic. It's romantic. Women love that. But why is it connected to wine? So, again, programming on the channel, programming on the channel. I don't need to pollute myself to properly love a woman. Just don't. And I don't need to pollute myself to close my eyes and feel my dad and the beauty that he brought into my world and how much he loved me in all of his many sides and his brokenness and his greatness and everything, right? And I don't need caffeine to get me up. Man, I'm up just talking to you, brother. Just breathing.
Oh,
Reality's great.
yeah, I love that. Living in the moment and not worshiping the modalities. I think that's very true. Because when I think about it now and I look back on it, yes, I was literally treating that marijuana like it was the thing, like my savior. It was the thing that was getting me through in life. When
Yeah.
in fact it was just a distraction. Um, and I was abusing it. But so question, I know you mentioned like the spirits and the entities and things like that. And I was listening to one of your Facebooks where you're talking about how like the toxins that people eat, like put the foods in their body, those are kind of like entities and spirits as well.
Mm.
I would like to hear more about that because I've never actually heard that side of like, toxins or chemicals in your body being like entities or spirits. And I
Yeah.
think it's really interesting now that I've heard it. And it makes me think about like another name for alcohol or booze, booze or spirits, right? Like, and I always thought that was interesting, like booze or spirits, like that's a name for like an entity or like
Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
you
Visit a
maybe
bar,
expand on that a little bit?
visit any bar at 1, 2 a.m.
Mm,
and you see people that are just like, what's going on? What happened?
mm,
What's going on? Yeah, that's a multi-part conversation. So to kind of frame this, if you've ever done a cleanse, so anybody listening, right? If you've ever done a cleanse on day 2 or 3, you're like, all right, I'll keep drinking this juice or popping that cleanse pill, however you're doing it, liver cleanse, whatever. But by about day 3 or 4, maybe day 5, depending on where you are in your health, the fat holds toxins. That's why people get fat. Fat is a great barrier to like hold toxins. That book, How to Eat, Live, and
yeah.
Be Healthy Behind You, talks a lot about it. Fantastic book. Anybody listen to this, buy that book. Dr. Paul Chek. Um, and when the toxins start leaving our body, they come into our muscles and come into our bones.
Mhm.
And so a couple of things. When this is really talked about from the it's deliverance.
Mhm.
It's deliverance ministry. This is what ultimately we're talking about. When we start speaking to toxins in any form, physical form, and they're in our body, although there is a spirit of infirmity, I've worked with people through just horrendous physical problems in their bodies, and they were just had a spirit of infirmity that was just holding them down. Um, but toxins can show up in a lot of different ways. Demonic possession, again, disembodied entities, various frequencies. Life ultimately is frequency and vibration, and that sensory feeling. And when we start seeing that, and then more importantly, speaking against it and or taking action against it, i.e., a cleanse, our
Mhm.
body starts releasing it, and we ache. It feels like you're something's gripping your spine, like the lower base of your spine. It's just like right, because that's like your main sensory, right, just through your spine. And so, yeah, when we consume toxins, we're consuming more than just the physical. And I think this is where doctors have just maybe they're awakening. I don't know. I've these last 3 years and with me and doctors has me a bit agitated, but there are amazing good healers. Let's call them healers that happen to be doctors that are truly about healing the human being, that will talk about this. I was going to say freely, freely as possible if they're not getting deplatformed,
Right.
that will treat the whole human being, body, mind, soul. And so you're asking about, detoxing. It's more than just our body. And so when I was putting people through the deliverance process, I was a deliverance minister for about 2-3 years,
Right.
and that's like the Navy SEAL of ministry. I mean, you're like on the first line. And I don't say that to brag. I'm saying that to be like, holy shit, get me off this line. I could only do it 2-3 years. I don't think it's meant to be done forever. And now I pepper it in with self-sabotage coaching because I think it's just more holistic for the person. But I would stand over people and I'd have them in a chair and deliver them from things that they were holding on to, just like you would be going through a cleanse. Like, you're taking something, oils or something that's delivering your body of toxins. The spirit can hang on to these things too, from generational curses and sin, willful things that we do, various substances that we take, alcohol, all the different spirits. That's fascinating. Various drugs, sex. Sex is a huge one. There's a reason Scripture talks so much about being cautious. They call it fornication, being cautious of who we have sexual intercourse with. And it truly doesn't even have to be sexual intercourse. That's the most intimate, right? Because we are joining and becoming one, becoming one flesh. But it can also be, it doesn't have to be intercourse. It can be, it can be a lot of different things. I have felt transition just from a hug, right? So it's when I was in that ministry, I would look for someone's story. It's very similar to what I do in self-sabotage coaching. Is I take their entire story and just go self-sabotage, right? Oh, they've got a judgment and vow. That was a big one. A judgment and vow is, I had a judgment and vow where I said, I'll never be poor like my father. That's me judging his financial state based upon something that I saw as a child that scared me. And I said, I'm never gonna be poor like my dad. Reality is my dad wasn't poor, but I created a judgment against him, and then I created a vow. And as a result, I had to work very, very hard for my money. My dollars came very hard. Wow. It's been very odd. And I've just cleaned that up in the last 4 or 5 years. And so that's judgment and vows. Unforgiveness. I had a lot of unforgiveness in me. People that had wounded me, distracted me, hurt me, left me, whatever it is, but unforgiveness. And so one by one, just going through all these things, I forgive this person from my heart. I let them go free. I hold nothing to their charge. I send blessings to them. May God bless them, right? People that I had sex with, I take back everything that is of me that is in them, right? So you ever felt like not yourself? Yep. You ever felt like, man, something's just missing in me? What's going on? I feel fragmented. Go have sex with 2, 3 people, that'll happen, right? So, but you can call all that back. I call back everything that's of me, that's in them. That's not, they don't need to be carrying it. I'm doing them a favor. Pull that back. And everything that's of them, I give back to them, right? It's all energy. And I break that tie. I break that cord and that soul bond. It's called a soul tie, actually, because you're tied. You're tied in. And there's good soul ties. We have good soul ties with our parents until we're adults. Then we need to break it. We have good soul ties with our wives and our spouses and our partners, right? Right now, you and I could even create a soul tie around a business or a mentorship. Soul ties can be beautiful if they're spoken and agreed on and we understand them. But these things just fragment people and keep them bonded. Why is it that the woman in a long-time marriage, relatively happy, couple of kids, has some type of longing for the high school boyfriend, right? She goes back to her 20-year reunion, and there's no problems at home, but she finds herself in bed with her high school bad boy boyfriend. Why? It's a soul tie. It's a soul tie. She'd never go with that guy. See this all the time. It's in everybody. Nobody's exempt from it. Nobody. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did.
I think you'll find from my answers that it's such a holistic experience in talking about us as humans and who we are and how do we heal.
Yeah, I love that. What's our word to say?
I wish I had the potion, brother. I wish I had the potion, brother. I would sell it.
I mean, I think you have some really, really helpful information and insights. And I was just fascinated listening to your story about the soul tie, and just pretty much your whole explanation there. It was just super interesting because I think when I look back, I do feel like I gave part of myself away, and I feel like there is a lot of people who feel like they're missing parts of themselves. So that's a really interesting tool, like pulling yourself back. And I can totally see how it's true with
Isn't that a weird
energy.
exchange?
Yeah.
You said giving yourself away, if you don't mind me interrupting. I told you I'm a big talker.
Yeah.
So you said giving yourself away.
Mhm.
That was the key that where I just kind of paused. I was like, "Ooh, giving yourself away." I've certainly done that. And why do we give ourselves away? Is it not because we want something, right? And isn't that in itself a childlike? That's what a child would do. Hey, let me give to you and let me give you a hug. And let me, children do what they want in return. And when they don't get in return, uh, they fragment. They fragment, whether by intention and deviant, evil shit, or just accidentally. A lot of the people I've worked with in healing, and just quick, it's never me healing. Just a just a disclaimer. It is always spirit. It is always God, or the power in which we're working, which could be the medicine. Jesus is a huge power to work within. So when people have that alignment of their power, I come into that power with them, because I can't make you believe in something you don't believe in. So if somebody's not a Christ follower, we can't use that power. It doesn't mean the power doesn't exist, and I can't call on it, but their healing exists in their power. And so I honor that. And Christians sometimes have a problem with that, but it's my goal is the human, is the person. And if Jesus can help me Jesus will always be able to help me get there because I'm connected to that.
Right.
But Jesus doesn't mind if I'm like, hey, Jesus, we may need to use Mother ayahuasca to come in, and because this person can't heal this horrific thing that they went through. So we may need to douse them and get them past their conscious ego and into a place where they could be with that wounding. Because what's happened in any trauma is fragmenting. And if the fragmenting is bad enough, we have what's called the defining moment. That's where we're plugging along, right? Everything's fine. We're 3, 4, 5 years old, and something happens that jars us off of that development. It's like a stake on the road to development, right? And we have many of them. We have them as adults. We can better handle them as adults. Getting fired, getting left, the shit that happens as adults are kind of defining moments that grow us. But as children, they change us, and we get a mask. Defining moment, mask. Defining moment, mask. Mask, mask. Shit, I had so many defining moments and so many masks. By the time I was 40, I was like, Tanner, tell me who you want to be. I got to hold on. I mean, it was like masks on a friggin' stick. It was terrible. And so these defining moments, dad slaps us. Defining moment. Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm bad. I just caused that. Right? Somebody comes along, touches us inappropriately. Defining moment. I'm bad. Private. Why I have private parts? These are private. Why is part of my body private? Held away. Nobody can see it. It's bad. Major sexual trauma in most people. Right? I was reading the other day, I may mess this up, but doesn't matter. The statistic was alarming. 3 out of 5 women have experienced some type of sexual trauma, and that's on the rise for boys. It's on the rise. So, when we're dealing with trauma and self-sabotage, which really all the same thing. Self-sabotage is the thing that comes from trauma. We got to look at these defining moments, and the defining moments that cause us to come off course and be different than who we are. And that's why I always come back to being the loving parent. When you don't have children, I'm assuming I don't have children.
I do actually.
You have a child. How old?
He's 9 months old.
Oh my God. Okay. I love that. So imagine him. 9's probably too young, but imagine a nephew or somebody coming up to you. He's 3 or 4 and he's crying and he's sad and something's just happened. You wouldn't, hey, shape up, slap the kid, or I'll give you something to cry about. No, you wouldn't do that. You'd get down on one knee and be like, hey buddy, what's going on? Talk to me. And he'd come into you and somebody took my toy, or most likely it's nothing massive, but he needs that moment. And that's a real, tangible scenario of what it means to be your own loving parent. And when you get on the healing journey, and I think this is what I want most people to hear, is when you get on the healing journey, one, you are up leveling the entire planet. You are helping me, you are helping Brother Tanner, you are helping every person by being your better self. And the first thing, you're gonna want to just muscle it. You're gonna want to just, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Read the books. I got a bunch of them right here. You're gonna want to get on everything. First thing I would ever tell you is love yourself, breathe, and become your own loving parent. Treat yourself like you would that adorable, perfect, beautiful little 3-year-old child. And just, practically speaking, because you always ground me, Tanner, practically speaking, find a picture of yourself. I have mine here somewhere. Find a photo of yourself. It'd be really cool for this interview if I could pull that out. Wouldn't that be sexy? I'd be like, hey, here's mine. Darn, I don't have it. But
When you were young?
when I was young, when I was 5, I got a cowboy hat on, man. Fucking cool, man. I was just, I wish I had the photo. I know it's here somewhere. I'm not being a good loving parent if I don't have my own photo of myself. Shit. But it is here. I think it's in one of my bookmarks. But I look at that little thing every once in a while. I'm just like, man, you are cool. And I remember being 5 years old and the fun that I had. And the defining moment I had, the catalyst in my healing, happened about 2 years ago. Never be the same. Never be the same. And I did have a little plant medicine assistance because my ego is huge. I'm just gonna tell you that.
What was that
And
plant medicine? I'm curious.
and I talk about plant medicine with a lot of disclaimers. If you're thinking about plant medicine, get with a shaman. And a shaman won't call himself a shaman. Okay. All right. You won't find this person online. First off, like just message me. Just message me. It is a process of it finding you. So to answer your question, I was had a little bit of psilocybin, so just some mushrooms, right? It wasn't anything crazy, and I microdosed. My story with plant medicine is massive. It started in 2018, and I was with ayahuasca, and I was in Costa Rica, and I had multiple shamans and assistants, and I was in a place designed for these experiences, and there was doctors there, and it was incredible, and it was like visiting the real hospital. But since I don't need those experiences now because I've had those big things broken off of me, and so sorry, I just can't answer that question quickly.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't want somebody to go,
Mhm.
because you hurt yourself.
Yep.
So I had a little bit of, I was in journey. Intentionally went into a journey experience, and I had a little psilocybin. It was melted into with a little bit of dark chocolate, and it had some ghee, had some coconut oil in it, and it was made into a tea. And I drank the tea, and then my journey, I like to let that settle in. And then I like to take off all my clothing and go lay in bed with a sheet over me so I can feel my body. Our bodies are transmitters, right? There's just so many sensors in our bodies. And so I would like to just sit there. The sheet tingles my skin and gives me kind of a sensual experience of being able to sense things, not sensual, not sexual, but sensual experience. And I was laying there and I laid my hands up and I just breathed real deep from my diaphragm. Just breathe and just continue to empty out my thoughts and let myself. And I can now get myself into trance without medicine. If I were to just do this long enough, I would start experiencing like a kaleidoscope of imagery in my head around my frontal lobe. It's beautiful. And so pineal gland, right? It's a big one. Your third eye, right? And there's magic in that. The calcification that happens in that frontal lobe, right? And getting that third eye open to feel this. So anyway, to continue, I was in journey, head up, breathing, And the little boy visited me,
Mhm.
and he just started talking, and he just started talking. And if you listen to a child long enough and he realizes that he has an audience, he'll keep talking. He, really, everybody's this way.
Mhm.
Listening is an art. I just kept listening. So, tell me more. Tell me more. Oh, what happened then? And he told me what happened. And I just want to pause into that.
Yeah, that's a good pause.
Hmm. He told me what happened. He told me what happened to him. And then he showed me. Again, just pausing into it, right? He showed me what happened to him. And then he said, I want you to go to the bathroom. And I did. I went in my bathroom and I saw him there. I saw him there, naked, pissed on, bloody. I'd come on him, 5 years old. I'd never seen it. I'd never seen it because I couldn't see it. To see that before I was ready would have killed me, maybe literally. I probably would have suicided myself.
Mhm.
God in his beauty, he knows. He knows. He knows when we're ready. And he heals if we want it. And so Tanner, brother Tanner, I see this little guy. And what do I do? What would you do if you saw a little 5-year-old in that situation? There I am standing there naked, grown man. I got down on the floor in my bathroom and I laid there with him. And I didn't move. I was probably there an hour. I don't know. I lost time. In that moment, I felt that little boy's pain at 5. That's been pinging. Like have you ever been to a bank behind a teller window of glass, bulletproof glass, and you're thumping the window and they can't hear you? That's what that little boy is like. So if anybody's listening, I'd say, that little child's behind that wall. And it's up to us, the adult, to go and rescue him. Be your own rescue. And I did that day. Honestly, I wish I'd found him earlier. But I laid there. And in that day, he joined me. It's no longer adult child. It's no longer childlike behavior in an adult Robin. That's weird. It's now playful Robin. It's now romantic Robin. It's the archetypes of masculinity that I can embody. Not perfectly, fuck that. I'm not, I'm not being perfect. That's
Mhm.
boring. The archetypes of masculinity: lover, a warrior, magician, king. King. We all have this. Every man has these archetypes in him. And I was able to go and rescue that little kid. And now that little 5-year-old, he's right here. Always. Always.
Wow, that is a really powerful story. And I think that really opens up just really what you meant by like being your own loving parent, um,
Yeah.
and facing that. So, and I think it's so important you address the fact like you think that was there with the whole time, but it had been blocked for a reason.
Yeah.
I guess so you could become an adult, and then that's once you're an adult, that's when you need to face these things. once you get to the right spot.
For sure. And it happens in layers. All friends that are watching know that it happens in layers. It just wasn't my aha moment. Robin said, go to Costa Rica and lay on the bathroom floor naked. No, no. It started with conversations like this. It started with a book. It started with somebody smiling at me. I am a product of good men and women who loved me fiercely when I couldn't love myself, who said, hey, you're on a wrong course, or hey, don't forget about this, or hey, I know you messed up, but you're gonna be okay. Do it again. It's continue to peel the layer. It is in the journey. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it is true. I think it was a famous pastor's wife. Maybe was it Billy Graham's wife? I don't know who it was. It said, on my tombstone, I'm going to have the words "end construction." End construction. Like, the construction's over when you're in the ground, and our spirits go somewhere else and we come back in some other form. I don't know. Nobody really freaking knows. It doesn't matter. It's amazing because it's been working for millions of years and it's still working now. And so, we found ourselves here. That's no more strange than finding ourselves in some other life form. But while we're here, continuing to peel that onion and grow in the layers of who we are. There's an expression I love. It's an old Native American saying that says, no man has ever seen the same river twice, because the man has changed and so has the river. And so just in this hour or so that we've been talking, we are different. We have evolved, right? Like there's a new layer of skin that we get every 30 days, a whole new skeletal structure I think it's either 1 or 2 years. We're a totally different human every 2 years. I am changed from this conversation, never to be the same. That is amazing. That is amazing. So for your listeners, know that healing's possible. And while it feels like that rickety bridge, if you'll just breathe, if you'll just show up and breathe, there will be offshoots to that roads, and that freeway will the source, it'll show you. Like, what's the old saying? The teacher appears and the student's ready.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready for the little 5-year-old on the bathroom floor, as traumatic as that story was. And thank you for listening to that. That always causes a lump in the throat, because it's my reminder to breathe and not abandon him in the horrific scenario of what happened, and to share it boldly, courageously. People need our stories. Mm-hmm. And so for listeners, know that healing exists. And maybe now more than ever, because Tanner, how old are you? 20?
30.
30?
Yep.
Sorry, you have a young face.
I do have a very young face.
Yeah, I thought you were like 24. Doesn't matter. Guys of all ages. I mean, YouTube exists with teenagers, having these amazing experiences of awakening. It's just such a beautiful time to be alive. The poets talk about the times of revolution being a time where it's great to live in times of revolution, because the people are alive. They want change. They see bullshit for what it is. They're no longer being controlled. They're just like, yes, I want to create. I want to take an hour out of my day and talk to this person I've not met for an hour, and in hopes that it'll spread the conversation bigger. We're in revolution. We're in the times of revolution, the age of Aquarius, right? Where the planet is evolving, and we can share these stories and be seen and heard and felt, then we can create. And that's where the magic is. creating from a place of wholeness versus trauma. Because let me tell you, that little boy that I described on the bathroom floor, he has a place in creation, right?
Mhm.
He now reparented, not as a wounded child. I see a lot of wounded adults running around out there. And if they would stop and go heal that child and become their own loving parent and bring the child with them, their whole selves, wow, we would have amazing creation going. And we do have amazing creation going on, because I can use that little boy. That little boy has a place in creation. He's frisky, he's fun, he's energetic, he's just a battery times 10,
He's got a
right?
cowboy hat on, right?
He's got a cowboy hat on, he's cowboy cool. So yeah, yeah. So anyway, I've got a huge heart for men, especially in this journey. Because one, I think the war of masculinity is real. Tanner, you know that we've talked about that, and I think that men fully alive is just a really incredible, beautiful thing. And when men can rediscover that healthy masculine inside of them, and I just reject this whole notion of toxic masculinity to the very core. I'm a major warrior opponent to even that being a thing or that being a label. Yes, people do toxic shit. So for anybody who's been harmed at the hand of a man, that's wrong. And men repent and make restitution, and they do better. But masculinity in itself is not toxic. There's no toxic femininity. There's no toxic homosexuality or toxic apples, or you know what I mean? Why is it strictly toxic masculinity? So I think that's part of the battle and part of the war on masculinity. And I think good men like you and I, Tanner, and the people watching and that want that, just need to warrior up on that and rally around men and peaceful non-compliance in that, right?
Mhm.
So that's another podcast too.
No, yeah, I love that. I completely agree because I feel like part of being a masculine man is not being toxic, right? Like those things aren't like the same thing, in my opinion, where
Yeah.
you are a masculine man and you are willing to be abusive to people and things like that. That I don't see that as the same kind of thing. I think that is a childish man. And
Right.
that's someone who hasn't found that child within them and shown them that love like you were talking about.
Sure.
And
And,
part of
and let's be real. That didn't exist before the days of Donald Trump.
right.
So we saw him show up in his demeanor. We'll just call it that. I don't want to judge Brother Donald. He is who he is, and he did good. He did bad, just like the rest of us. I don't care. That whole thing's a puppet show. But that was birthed off of the way he showed up and some of his statements that he said that were misogynistic to women. And I get it. I don't. Again, I'm not here to defend that. Um, um, but it was just used as a whipping stick. You know, guys make mistakes. Guys do dumb shit, just like women do. And so I think the that war of the sexes, has been going on a long time, way before Trump. And so it's definitely time for men and women to come together and have conversations about that. And uh, again, I don't experience those things. I just don't experience behaviors like that because I'm not getting my needs met from a 5-year-old wounded child perspective who's been abused and is laying bloodied on the bathroom floor. Right? He's with me, and I intentionally create, Tanner. I can create with you what I want to create. Hey, this is the way I like to be treated. I can correct somebody. Hey, I don't like it when people call me Robbie. Can you call me Robin? I have no problem saying that to people. Hey, I don't. I like it. I like to be hugged this way. I ask for what I need. Hey, can I have a hug? And this is the kind of hug I need. And if somebody says no, no problem, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so, when you have adults creating intentionally from healed places. A lot of this stuff just kind of takes care of itself. It just kind of goes away. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that ties it back to just your story in general, right? Loving yourself and really being there to listen to that small child, and love that small child, and um, being intentional in it, like
Yeah.
breathing into it and avoiding those distractions that we talked about, and just being honest with yourself, I think too, right? um
100%.
and I think that's so important, is to love yourself through anything. Like, I I want to touch on this a bit because I know a lot of people, believe they need to have, the hot wife, the hot husband, the car, the money, the perfect body, the muscles, all those things to be able to love themselves. Some people, they feel like they need something external to love themselves. And
Sure.
I think it probably ties back, and your answers I'm thinking right now is going to probably be that they feel like they need those things because they're missing out on that child part of them, that they're fragmented, like we were talking about.
Mm.
What's your and I don't mean to speak for you, but I was just
Yeah,
thinking about that. I was like,
I know where you're going. I know where you're
yep,
going.
mhm,
What's our relationship with
yep,
stuff,
yep,
right? Possessions, right? The trappings of the world, as they call it. Um, I think that's real simple, and I think those are metrics. That's how I've changed it. These are metrics. Money is a metric. So I run a coaching business. Other friends run gyms and cleaning businesses and tech businesses, and money is a metric, but it's not the only metric, right? The car is a metric. All those things are wonderful, but are they trappings, right? And why? I used to buy. I mean, I can't. If I had 10% of the money that I've wasted on new cars, I'd be sitting on an island somewhere. And so I buy these things, and what I really wanted was recognition, right? I connect with someone through a sexual experience, and what I really want is connection. I have a drink, and what I really want is camaraderie with the boys. I buy the house, and what I really want is just to feel safe. I didn't feel safe when I was a kid in that house, so I create my own house, and it needs to be something that shows everybody else how well I'm doing. So I think those are the recipes for where, it's that proverbial guy that's sitting alone in his house after his wife has just left him and taken the kids, and he's got a Ferrari parked in the garage, and he's sitting there and his thoughts are so loud, it's deafening, right? And so your question is about, what do we do with those things? They're tools, they're rewards, they're pleasantries, they're things to enjoy. They're part of God's creation. It's all God. It's part of God's creation. Who doesn't stop and marvel at the lines on an exotic car, or doesn't stop and give pause to a beautiful piece of architecture, the things that we build, the things that we create. Um, um, I personally love a fine custom suit. I don't own one. It's the first time in a long time I haven't owned a suit, but I'm telling any guy that's listening, treat yourself to a nice suit. Doesn't need to be custom, but a nice suit. Get your initials labeled on the inside, something really bespoke just for you. You put that on, you feel like a new man, right? There's a reason why men buy $5,000 Brioni suits. Makes them feel good, right? There's also a reason why people buy prostitutes, right? So, or jab a vein with heroin, or smoke crap. It's the reasons outside of ourselves. I have goals, aspirations, right? I'd love for my coaching business to be seven figures, and it will.
Mhm.
It will be eventually one day, but it's a metric. It's a metric, and it can't be the only metric. And I catch myself in it. It can't be the only metric. It's got to be lives served. It's got to be lives saved. There's been more than one time I've been on the phone with somebody and they got the phone in one hand and a 9mm in the other. You talk somebody off that wall, let me tell you, it's crickets. It's crickets. But that's life saved. Um, the, the the two or three conversations I'm in today with people that are wrestling with their inner children and the things that I'm telling them about. I'm going to send this video to them. Hey, be your own loving parent,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
My own energy level. What's my body doing? How am I aging? I'm 51. How am I aging? What's my hair doing? What's my body doing? How am I feeling? Am I checking in? Am I connected? Right? How am I treating other people? There's so many metrics, so many metrics. And to pursue, for anybody who's wanting to pursue that car or that home, or just ask yourself one question. This thing it'll ground you into one.
Mhm.
Why? Just say why. Why do I want that? And you'll give yourself a surface answer. So why is that important? Then another answer. Why is that important? Then we get a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper, and you will find the value, the value that's driving that decision. Why do I want a house? I don't want a house. I want to feel safe. So do I need to buy that $1.8 million home to feel safe? No. I have felt safer in the smallest, humblest of places.
Mhm.
And I've been in plenty of mansions. I sold real estate for 25 years. I've sold thousands of properties. And it wasn't always the big fancy ones that were the warmest. I saw a lot of houses. I did not see a lot of homes, right? And watching how I speak about that. It's not the poor little, you know,
Mhm.
white picket fence home that's perfect. No, a mansion can have it too. I've been in breathtaking homes. One of the homes I was in California was $48 million, and it was incredible. And I was like, man, this is cool. I feel like I could kick my feet up and do whatever. It was a home, but I've also been in $125,000 houses that were cold as can be. So ask yourself why. Why do I want that girl? Oh, I want connection. Why do I want that drink? I want to feel something, or I don't want to feel something. Why do I want that car? I want to feel like I've arrived. That's big for men. I want to feel like I've arrived, right? It's real big for men in their 30s and 40s, right? Because you're in the age of warrior and lover, and you're building, and you got endless energy, and your body's firing, 100 different ways, and you're into the age of responsibility. You've got a 9-month-old, right? You wanted to build that house, castle, provide for your woman, right? It's really important for young men, especially, to ask themselves why. Why do I want that? So, because the worst thing you could ever do, and I experienced this, was to build and build and build and build and build, and realize your ladder was against the wrong house. You know what I mean? Like, I got this expression: I'm not scared of failure. I'm scared at succeeding at something that doesn't matter. That's what terrifies me at my age, right? To work 20 years and be like, shit, that wasn't anything, right? And how many guys do we know that have that? That's the cliche story that we see. It's the Hollywood movie. I worked, I provided, I got the corner office, and my wife hates me, my kids don't talk to me, and I'm drinking and drugging, and then they crash. And hopefully they heal, or they have the midlife crisis with the stripper and the Porsche. I don't know. But ask yourself why. Because there's values. And I do a process with my clients called value proposition. Value proposition. It's really quite quick. And I'll give it to you, Tanner, so that you can give to your, it's just my gift to your listeners and the people that listen to this. I'll create a link, you download it, done. And we think of values as, well, I value honesty. I value honesty. And are we good on time? Are we good on time? I go a lot.
I'm still good.
I can talk about anything. Values. We talk about honesty. I value honesty. And what I submit to you is that honesty is the product of your value. It's not the thing. It's the thing that happens from what you value. So let me give you an example. When we're able to operate in our values, and Dr. DeMartini wrote a book. He's brilliant. He wrote a book called Value Factor that was excellent. I definitely recommend it. But what I say to people in values is you can't live in the value of honesty. Like, what are we talking about? There's degrees of honesty. There's your perspective. There's my perspective. There's eternal truth. I mean, what are we talking about? I don't know how to, am I being honest right now? Some people may watch this video and go, God, what a schmuck, you know, that guy's not honest. So who knows? Value is something you can live in. So for example, when you go through value proposition, you're able to label the things that you like. So for example, I have a value called sail, like a boat sail. And when I'm in the value of sail, I'm able to put myself in a position where natural resources catch me and will take me to another place. I have another value called Big Red Bronco. I used to own a 1973 red Ford Bronco, and it looked like a Tonka toy. I loved this thing. I wish I still owned it. It was bad. It was so cool. I'll send you a photo of it. And Big Red Bronco was rambunctious. It had big 33-inch tires. It had no top on it. It had a big speaker box in the back. I mean, this thing was just, I mean, if you could take yourself back to being a senior in high school and just being the man, it would be this Bronco. But it's part of my value system. It's rambunctious. It's fun. It's just, it doesn't give a shit. It's a value, and it's appropriate in some places. It's not appropriate in other places. Another value, this will be my last one, and it's a value that I'm in quite a bit with my coaching, and I call it scuba. Scuba. Like, scuba, what's that? Scuba is the ability, you would have your own creations, and whoever goes through this would have their own creations. Scuba is the ability to go deep with somebody and survive there. Imagine how valuable that is when somebody has hired me as a coach or as a minister, or they've just told me freaking their whole life story, right? Who they had sex with, drugs they've done. I hear some crazy stuff, right? You've gone deep with somebody. It'd be inappropriate to be Big Red Bronco. I would hurt them. It'd be horrible. I mean, shame on me. Not shame, because shame's terrible, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Scuba allows me to, I'll sometimes put my hands out to the side, I'll breathe, very intuitive. I'm slow with my questions, right? How'd that feel? Like voice inflection. Mm-hmm. It's like a scalpel. I'm a surgeon. I'm a surgeon in that moment. Maybe the only way they've ever been in this place with somebody, to be this vulnerable, filleted open, and maybe able to go, there's a little cancer there. You can keep it. Do you want to keep it? No, I cut it out. Okay, let's cut out this cancer. That's what I need you to do. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. So we go deep. We can live there. It's a huge value of mine. And more importantly, I don't want to leave you there. I got to bring you up. You ever scuba dived?
I have not, but I've always found it interesting.
Put that on your radar. Put that on your radar. It's a whole thing, right? You have to do it a certain way. You get the bends, you come up too fast, you get hurt. I got to bring them back up. Because if it's like cut out the cancer and like, peace out, see ya, well, I've hurt them again. No, surgeon sews you up. Surgeon, then there's aftercare. hey, check in with me. How you doing? You just went through big stuff. I want to see you. I want to acknowledge you. Brave. All right. Here's what I want you to do tomorrow. Here's what I want you to do tonight. I want you to turn off your phone. I want you to go do a hot sea salt bath. I want you to go walk down that nature trail. And if you're triggered, I want you to call me. I don't care what time of day or night. I go through this with some people if they're in that space. And then I'm going to call you tomorrow morning. Put this on your calendar right now, 9 a.m. That's scuba. Bring them back to a place where they can live. And so value proposition, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I did, and I just kind of I just kind of acted out those values. And so that's a neat little fun thing that we can do with people to where they can really understand. And this is really tying it back to why do we buy fancy cars, right? All of that. Why do we buy a fancy car? Ask why and know your values. But if you don't know your values, how can you make the decision? You're a ship without a rudder. So yeah, I'll send that to you, and we'll gift that to your listeners in a way that they can easily receive that, and that'll be of benefit to them.
Well, thank you. Yeah, really appreciate that. I love your storytelling ability. It's really amazing. Like I was totally like seeing you back at like senior year with your big red truck, like
Right.
blasting music.
Which is funny because I didn't go to high school, but
Yeah.
I've seen movies. I know what it's
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, your story just totally made me. I totally just visualized it in my head. So yeah, that is awesome. I love that technique. That's super powerful, and being able to bring those values out and be
Yeah.
that scuba, or you know be that person that you need to be in the time, um, or use that, I guess, use that part of you, because it's all a part of you really at that point, right?
This has been a great conversation.
It really has. I'm so just so grateful to have you on this podcast, Robert.
And you too, man. I love what you're doing, and you're just such a being bright energy to the channel and to life. And I see you online. I'm just like, man, you go, guy. I'm just freaking rooting for you, man. I'm on the sideline. It's just go, go, go. I love it. I love it. Proud of you.
Thank you so much. And so if you have like one final message for the listeners out there, um, what do you want to leave them with? Whatever it may be, you can touch on a couple of things, you can dive in, but what do you want them to be thinking about on their way out of here?
Wow. I'm pausing into that. Not because I don't have something to say.
I
I
mean,
think
and
you
you've already covered some like really important stuff. So I mean, even if you touch back to something you have talked about already, that's totally fine. Like,
no, no, there's something bubbling up. And again, not I don't have anything to say. I think I've proven I've got plenty to say.
yeah.
I think our first thought is always the most true.
Mhm.
And the first thought I had when you said that, and I I started ping ponging around, going, no, I got to say something cooler than that. I got to come up with a zinger.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, no, I don't. People don't need a zinger. They don't need some pearl of wisdom. They need people to be authentic. And the most authentic thing I could say in this moment was my first thought. And that is, there is, don't give up on the beauty of humanity, the beauty of yourself. There is a there is a person underneath the veneers, underneath the masks, underneath the pain, underneath just all the shit and garbage and propaganda and media. You don't have to look far. I mean, there's ourselves, but then there's the world. You don't have to look too far left and right to be like, WTF to this. And close your eyes if you have to, and just know that humanity is beautiful. It's raw, it's real, it's tormented at times, but it's evolving, and it's inside of us. It's all inside of us. And I'm speaking to myself now. This is always a reminder. So that's probably my biggest share.
I love it, and I love that authenticity. And you know, I feel like we all have those thoughts where we're just like, I need to share it this way. I need to share it this way. But I love the fact that you went with your first thought and let it out. Um, it was it was powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for
Uh,
honoring me and letting me be on your show here. And yeah, I hope it helps many people to rise, into their potential and heal. And maybe it just looks like treating your spouse a little better tonight, right? Maybe it just looks like smiling at a stranger. Maybe it just looks like eating a little better just today, right? Don't poison yourself for just one day. It doesn't have to be big lights, camera, action events. I often have to remind myself it's just these little things to show up and be counted that make a difference. It's beautiful.
you just gave another powerful tip. Yep. Just
That's it.
the small little the actions that it and I love that because some people get stuck on those large like
Yeah.
I have to lose all this weight, I have to gain all this muscle, I
Yeah.
have to do this big thing, and then they forget like it's just the small little things. It's just eating the food. It's just
Me too. That was insignificant. That wasn't big enough.
yeah.
Little child, bring me back a good painting. I don't want that scribble.
Yeah. And Robin, so if anyone wants to work with you or contact you, I'll put your links down in the description below. But
Okay.
just real quick, where can they find you on?
Easy. I'm on all channels at Robin Austin Reed, just at Robin Austin Reed. Um, Love Instagram, but I'm there on LinkedIn, however you want to find me. My website is Robin Reed Author because I am a writer. I love to write. And so that's kind of a value identity that I live into. So robinreedauthor.com. And if you want to put a / epic life in front of that, download my free book. It's called Epic Life, how to get what you want without sacrificing your soul.
Awesome.
Create the life you want or tolerate the life you have. It's a fun book. I wrote it off a blog post while helping a friend and actually a client through a horrific marriage. And it turned into a book around creation and our words and empowerment and what we say and how to get clarity. It's an easy read.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, and I was checking out your website and I was like, man, these look like some really cool books. So I had some of them on my list too.
Yeah,
So
I love talking about love. I've written a book called For Women Listening who are not attached and want to meet a good man. I've written a book and it's on all formats. It's an audiobook, print, everything, called Manifest Your Man: How to Find Love and How to Find True Love in 30 Days. And it comes with an online video course, and it's me walking you through your energy and how you show up and what men do and how to work with them. And that's kind of fun. And I've written a book called The Art of Touching a Woman, which was my first project. And that was really beautiful. A lot of healing came from the art of touch. I've written a style guide for guys who want to kind of up level, how they show up and their look and how to use a
nice
pocket
suit.
square, how to get that suit. I got a style guide, man. It's called The Gentleman's Style Guide.
Awesome. Yeah, well, once again, I'm just so grateful and humble that you are able to come on this podcast. Like I truly believe it has changed me, and for the better, I think, as well. So, I just love being able to speak to people and hear their stories. It really is, I think, just a life-changing thing, and just the way you told your story was just so powerful. And thank you once again for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome, my friend. I can't wait to see you out there and many, many more visitors to this.
Awesome. Yep. And everyone, please give this a like, a subscribe, leave us a comment. I'll, yeah, yep. Get it out to as many people as possible. People need this healing. So,
Right.
yep, send it on out. And thank you everyone for listening. Thanks, Robin.
Bye bye.